with this whole ratings kind of being at the forefront, I understand what you mean with that. I mean, the world's at a point where there's a desperate need for validation and attention constantly. So, would you say that in the journalism world or in these networks, there is almost a blockbuster genre of story? Like, if they got a little bit of information about a certain topic, that would be the thing they push the most. Maybe they would get information about good things that are happening in the world, but because this one thing's happened, they want to push that story the most.
Yeah, it's been known to happen. Like, do you want me to reference a certain great media tycoon back in the past?
Go for it.
Yeah, William Randolph Hearst.
William
I mean,
Randolph.
he owned several newspapers, dozens of newspapers throughout the country.
Yep.
And all he wanted to do was go for spectacular, exciting stories. He was really put about in the late 1890s. He was really pushing for the United States to annex Cuba, and there was an indigenous liberation movement going on in Cuba, and it was always and Hearst was always hyping or exaggerating some stories that showed the depravity of the Spanish administration in Cuba, and then the battleship Maine blew up in Havana Harbor, and that gave the United States an excuse to go to war with Spain to capture Cuba. But there was these calm research that said that the Spanish did not put a bomb underneath the Maine. It most likely is that like a spark from the furnace flew into the coal bin and caught fire, that kind of thing. But they didn't. But so many people in the McKinley administration and Hearst, such as Theodore Roosevelt, who was Assistant Secretary of the Navy under McKinley, were all gung-ho and just champing at the bit to invade Cuba, just so they could have a war. I mean, it was like there was this generation of young men that were upset because they missed out on the Civil War. Now they wanted their own war, and finally they got it. And when you think about it, all the news media that they were talking about the glory and valor of the heroics of the war, where war is young men coming home broken and damaged physically and mentally, if they come home at all. It means families losing loved ones, blood and death and disease ravaging the country. But the news, Hearst and the other news media of that era didn't mention that. They just wanted stories of valor and glory.
Yeah, they had their own agenda that they wanted to push.
Oh yeah, and Hearst's agenda and the McKinley administration's agenda was to go to war with Spain, and be like the great European powers of that era. The European nations were getting big chunks of Asia and Africa to colonize them, and the United States didn't want to miss out on the whole imperialism game. They just wanted to have their own little bit of empire anywhere. And
do you think that still happens today, where people have their own agendas and they'll almost use the media to push it in their favor to the point where there is no other side. It is just their agenda, and you have to kind of accept it.
Well, it does has been known to happen. Like with the Red Scares after the World Wars, and during the First World War, the Russian Revolution came in, was on, and the Bolsheviks took power in November of that year, 1917, and during and right after the United States participation in the war, there was always there was a Red Scare to kind of crush all the radical movements of that era. Just to accuse them of taking German gold. Now, it wasn't about finding saboteurs and traitors, but just an excuse to crush these movements, like the Socialist Party under Eugene Debs or the IWW. Those were the main radical movements of the day, and it found an opportunity to come down on them, and the news media played along with that. And after World War II, there was the Red Scare about Stalin taking over the Eastern European countries and China, and in China, the nationalists lost to the communists in the Civil War, and there was this highly cultivated movement to try to ferret out communists, and again, people who were pushing a progressive agenda, what was then called a radical agenda, an agenda pushing civil and human rights forward. That was all considered communist. And the news media went along with that, along with the universities, and the Korean War was also played a role in that, and with Joe McCarthy's raving about communists in the State Department, and after the Korean War, and our participation in the Korean War ended, the Red Scare kind of faded, and Joe McCarthy was shown to be this attention-grabbing hack, but the damage was done, and the Red Scare was kind of faded, and there was propaganda about communists, but a warning about communists however the hell you define them, and
do you think that news media underestimate how powerful their opinion is? Like you said, they ran with it. Do you think maybe they'd underestimated the fact that they ran with it, pushed it for it was leaning more towards it was going to be a war?
Well, I think for a lot of times they did. Like Hearst knew that his media empire was so popular and had this enormous readership, and the Hearst papers always went for the big spectacular stories with just a smidgen of fact behind them, and so I guess they were. Hearst was conscious of the power of his papers, and conscious of the effect they had.